Does the thought of having to close a sales consultation and ask for somebody's money give you the heebie-jeebies? Does sales in general just kind of make you uncomfortable? Does the concept of selling seem kind of snake oily, scammy, sneaky to you? Does the word sales itself strike you as a dirty word? If it does, you're not alone. Not even close for that matter. In fact, just as you feel right now, I used to feel exactly the same. Every single one of those aforementioned statements was basically verbatim how I would have expressed my personal perspective of sales and selling in general. Now, what's interesting is now I actually love sales and I love selling. And what might be even crazier is I look forward to sales. I look forward to consultations that I'm going to be able to close. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not great at sales by any stretch of the imagination. I don't have a 10 for 10 closing rate right now. In fact, it would be a far cry to even suggest that I'm good. I'm moderate at best. But I look forward to the process. In fact, not only do I not avoid sales, as so many do, and you might be very much guilty of avoiding it, procrastinating, pushing off that phone call, that email, right? But I actually welcome the opportunity to not only practice and sharpen my skill set, but also to close a sale with a prospective client. I get excited. So what I wanted to share with you in today's video was how I got to that point. How did I go from being an individual who despised the concept of sales entirely to somebody who not only doesn't perceive sales to be negative, went right past middle ground, and now looks forward to the process itself? What happened in between that brought me from this end of the spectrum and pendulum swung me all the way over to this end? And the reality is that it was actually just a few perspective swaps, a few mindset shifts that happened to do the trick. And I want to share those perspectives with you and the experiences that I had that led me to this point, because I sincerely hope that if you're struggling with sales and selling right now, that you can overcome that hurdle, because it is going to completely change your entire life. And I don't exaggerate when I say that, because a lot of people right now are struggling in their business, are struggling in their profession, are struggling even in their personal life because of this subconscious script they have running that leads them to believe that engaging in sales, that selling itself, is bad, is negative. So hear me out. I want to share with you a quote that I came across a couple of years back in a book called Sell or Be Sold. It's a very simple book to read, very quick read. Nothing mind-boggling, except it will very much change your perspective on a lot of things, as simple as it may be. But the quote said, "Everything in life is a sale. Everything you want is a commission." Think about that. Everything in life is a sale. Everything you want is a commission. Now, before you jump all over that, yes, I realize it's a relatively superficial outlook on life, but it's not wrong. Consider every situation you've ever been in. At its most basic level, it is this. Consider, if you're a parent, which I am not, but I've seen this firsthand. In fact, I have been the victor, or what I believe to be the victor, in this exact same situation as a child with my own parents. You want your kid to stop frustrating you, driving you nuts and screaming and yelling and doing whatever they're doing to frustrate you. You might offer them some candy to cut it out. You might offer them the tablet to stop talking. That situation is a sale. You're negotiating with your child. You're giving them something, and they're going to give you what you want. And what you want is your commission. Consider your significant other, your spouse. You might suggest to them, hey, listen up. I really want to go to this restaurant tonight, and I know that we had plans to go somewhere you wanted to go, and I realize this isn't entirely fair, but it's opening night for this new restaurant, and the food looks amazing, and I really want to be there. And next 3 weekends in a row, you get to decide where we go, if we can just go to this place this one time. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that exact strategy is going to be effective for you. I don't know your personal relationships, but that may be a point of negotiation because you're trying to make a sale. You want the commission. You want to go to the restaurant that you're looking forward to attending this weekend. You might have a job. And in your job, your commission is your paycheck. It might not be a traditional commission that changes when you close deals with clients, but in order for you to continue to get your commission, which is your paycheck every single week or 2 weeks, you've got to continue to sell your employer or your manager on what you do. You've got to keep doing, at the very least, a bare minimum job. There's got to be a bare minimum prerequisite. Like maybe for you, it's just you got to show up. You got to be there. As long as you're there, that's all they care about. The standards might be higher though. You might have to not only show up, but you might have 10 tasks minimum that have to get done every day. The standards could be even higher than that. There's 10 minimum tasks, but they have to be done with 90% proficiency consistently, right? And so for you to continue to maintain that position, you've got to continue to sell by hitting whatever the standards are at your place of work. And then you get your commission of A, keeping your job, and B, getting a regular paycheck. So we could go on with these examples, but I think you kind of get the idea that a sale is not just you saying, hey, buy my vacuum and give me $100. A sale is not just, here's a used car. I promise it's only been in one accident, just a minor fender bender. Give me your money. Sales is a lot of things. In fact, sales is, as superficial as it might sound, everything. And what you want is a commission. So of the 4 scenarios that I went through personally, of the 4 situations, 4 experiences I had with which I learned to love sales. First, I want to clarify that this was not an immediate thing. This is something that has kind of happened over time. My mindset has shifted. And although there's been multiple contributing factors to this shift taking place, many books that I've read, many missed opportunities that occurred as a byproduct of my negative perception of sales, these 4, I feel personally, were the most impactful. The first one was actually relative to education. So those of you who have been following me for a while now know that I'm huge on continued education. I love learning, and I feel that the moment you stop learning, you're actually doing an incredible disservice to the people that you work with. So as a coach, I'm constantly in hot pursuit of what I can do next to level up. And what I realized was that in order to continue to level up, I needed to make a little bit of money. And the reason why was because the people who were offering the courses that I wanted to take, they were closing me when it came to buying their curriculum. The books I wanted to buy, they were closing me. There was a cost there. And in order for me to not only be able to afford to pursue that continued education, so that I could offer more to the clients I was working with, so that I could be a better coach, a better leader, a better business owner, so that I could give more value, so that I could help more people, so that I could offer a higher quality service, so that I could bring more to the table as a professional. In order to do all of those things, I needed money so that I could continue forward with those courses, with the curriculum, to purchase those books and read them, and further, to have that time available. Because if I couldn't afford to open up an hour or two every day to focus on learning, well, that wouldn't work either. So I came to this realization when I realized that a lot of the courses that I held in high regard that I wanted to take were not cheap. They were not $90 online courses. I was coughing up a pretty penny, and I realized that sales, actually, as strange as it sounds, was going to be a crucial component to my self-development. It was going to be a crucial component to my professional development. And if I wanted to continue going down that path of professional and personal development, sales was a necessity. And it wasn't a bad thing, because it was fueling that development. It was allowing that spark that I had to become a full-fledged flame. That was a positive, not a negative. And that kind of started to get me thinking. And then building off of that, when it came to owning a gym, which I realize is not necessarily relatable to everybody, but those of you who do own one or own a business will definitely understand this. Building off of the self-development and professional development, being able to better service clients, being able to bring more value to the table, being able to offer more to people. Well, this is the same in the gym setting. I wanted to make sure that the clients I worked with had access to the best equipment I could get my hands on. I wanted to make sure that the training environment they were in didn't have broken equipment. It had the best equipment, or at least the best I could get at that given time. I wanted to make sure that they got to try new things, that we got to experiment with new training implements, that I got to bring in specialty pieces to prioritize specific issues that clients may have, that I got to bring in training implements that would cater to very specific needs that few other people could cater to, or that nobody else could cater to. Well, just as was the case with professional development and personal development, in order to make that happen, I needed to get comfortable selling. Because if I couldn't increase profits, there was no way I was going to be able to increase the quality of training implements we had, or the quantity of training implements that we had access to. And I desperately wanted to do that. I wanted to deliver in that arena, and I think I've done a pretty good job of doing so thus far as a small show. And the only way I've been able to do that is to get comfortable selling, because in order to increase those profits, you gotta bring in more dollars. You gotta bring in more dollars. And the only way I've been able to do that is to get comfortable selling. Because in order to increase profits, margins considered, you gotta sell more. So those two experiences, or realizations, if you will, really started to get me excited about sales. I was no longer thinking of them as a negative. I was stoked for them. I was like, wait, if I can make X thousands of dollars in this period of time, that means we'll be able to buy X machine or X training piece, or we'll be able to take X course. And so it kind of became like a game where I was like, in order for me to get better, in order for us to offer more, in order for us to have better training tools available, in order to get to that next level of professionalism, of quality of service, of quality of training, facility, and environment, we gotta start selling. We gotta start selling. And so now, instead of avoiding selling, I was looking forward to the process, because I knew what it would translate to. So to clarify, the first realization I had was relative to professional development. That I needed sales to drive that constant pursuit. The second thing was, in order to improve the training environment, equipment, quality, I don't know why I put that slash there, and versatility, in consideration of like specialty equipment and whatnot, I needed more sales. Now, the third realization had nothing to do with professional development and nothing to do with training equipment or what may be. It actually came with the realization of the importance of commitment. I'm a firm believer that if you're going to get places, you need to be 100% sold on what you do. And I think that's a big problem for a lot of people, is they don't believe in themselves enough. Now, that is not something I've ever had a lack of. I've always had a lot of self-belief. I've always been surrounded by individuals who believe in me, which has really helped me grow. And as a byproduct, it's safe to say I have a little bit too much confidence at times. So when I really started developing momentum when it came to getting people results, I was sold. I knew I could help people when they walked through the door, assuming that their goal was relative to something that I was competent at as a coach. But somebody coming in the door with a goal that I could assist with, I was confident that I could get them from point A to B or C or wherever they needed to go. That wasn't an issue. But what did become an issue was when I realized that if an individual was in the market to hire a coach or have some sort of guidance when it came to their training and nutrition and what may be, that they were likely going to sign up with somebody. That was a given. They were in the market for it. They knew they needed assistance. And so if that individual was coming in the door, talking with me, and then they left and I did not close them, what I realized was I was doing them an incredible disservice. I was actually dropping the ball on that prospective client's behalf. And it wasn't fair for me to do so. Consider that if somebody comes in your door and you are 100% certain that if they sign up with you, you are going to not only deliver, but probably over-deliver. You're going to give them so much more than they could have ever expected, and they're going to get the results that they wanted. They're going to be over the moon happy. Consider that. Happens a lot. I'm sure you've had people walk in and walk out on a regular basis, and you facepalm because you're like, hey, if you had just stuck around, we would have made it happen. But if you let that individual walk out the door, you have made a very grave misstep. Now that person walks out your door. They weren't interested in your $1,000 package that was going to help them achieve XYZ. They walk down the street. They sign up with the next person on the list. $900. That coach cancels half of the sessions, shows up late to the other half. Halfway through the actual training package, they move across the country and they never refund the money. If you had closed that sale initially, that client would have invested that $1,000, worked with a true professional, achieved the results they wanted. I'm not saying you should lose sleep over the fact that every sale that you don't close is potentially going to end up in that type of situation. But what I am saying is consider the negative outcomes that are often a byproduct of you not closing that sale. Consider that for a moment. Don't be so selfish to only consider that you didn't make some more money, that you didn't have another client in your roster, that you didn't fill a slot in your schedule. Consider what's going to happen to that individual when they leave your building. And that's not to knock other trainers or coaches. I realize there are other competent people out there that can deliver. But would you bet your money on it? If you weren't involved with the process, if you weren't involved with the transaction, if you weren't the one working with that client, would you be willing to bet your money and guarantee the outcome they were looking for the same way you would be willing to do it if your name was on the work? So that realization and that mindset shift was relatively dramatic for me. And that, following these two, tipped me right over the edge. When I realized that sales was the driving force between me becoming a more competent professional, being able to offer more value, better service to my clients, when I realized that I could bring more to the table in consideration of the training environment that I was able to offer people, that was big. But then when I realized the potential downside, the potential disservice I was doing by letting a client walk away, a client that I could actually help, that really turned up the heat on me. And I started looking for more opportunities to get into conversations where I had the option to sell somebody that genuinely wanted or needed, which was more often the case, they needed the services that I could offer. So, I'm not even sure how to list that. The realization that was helping, and I guess you could say, oh geez, it was protective. I know that sounds a little bit silly, but it is exactly what it was. Me selling was helping that individual achieve their outcome, and further, by doing so, I was protecting that individual from potentially running into a very bad situation. Not saying that it always happens, but it definitely happens a lot more than people realize. In fact, you might have a few examples of clients that have come to work with you who've had very negative experiences in the past with trainers. I can tell you stories that would make your jaw hit the floor. But that's for another video. The final situation, or the final realization that I came to, was actually thanks to a client. Now, if you're in this industry, I can pretty much guarantee that you're someone who likes to help others. And so I used to be the person who, not that I no longer like to help others, in fact I like to help others even more, but I used to be the type of person who wanted to go above and beyond to help others, to the point where I was willing to do things that put me at a disadvantage. So for example, we've all done this. Somebody sends you a message, they really want to work with you, they can't afford you, or they claim they can't afford you, but they're desperate. They want to see results. Early on in my career, I used to take people on like this all the time. And it was because I wanted to help them. I genuinely wanted them to see results, and I felt that I could assist them. But what I found interesting, and you've probably experienced this as well, is every time I worked with somebody like that, 9 out of 10 times, I don't want to put a blanket statement out there, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but 9 out of 10 times, those individuals would ghost me. I would go through all the work of creating a workout program. I would send them emails, I would call them, I would text them, I would try and help them, etc., etc., etc. No response. They would disappear. They wanted all this help. They were so serious. They were so gung-ho. A weekend, gone, fizzled out. And I would be frustrated because I put so much time and energy. I tried to bring so much value to them. I tried to genuinely help them. And they didn't seem to care. And so one training session in particular, I was talking to one of my clients, and I asked her, I said, you know what, I'm frustrated. Can you please explain to me why it is that I can have an individual walk in the door, not even really all that interested in investing in themselves or aggressively pursuing a goal, but they'll write a check, they'll swipe their card, and they'll achieve incredible results. Yet I will have somebody else come to me that is 10 times as excitable, who is more committed in appearance and how they present their stance, who is desperate, it seems, for help, but who also claims they can't afford it, or they don't think they can afford it. And I will help that individual, and they will see no results whatsoever. And you know what she said? Very simple line. Don't forget this one. Oh, this is post-leg day. People who pay attention. One more time for you. People who pay attention. When somebody has to spend their hard-earned money on a product or service that you're bringing to the table, they're going to take it a lot more seriously. They're going to take you a lot more seriously. That I'm certain of. Not just because it sounds really cool. This is a great quote. It sounds really cool. But because I've seen it in action. And I'm sure if you take a moment and you audit your client roster, you might very well notice that more often than not, and again, this is not an absolute statement, but the individuals who are paying you the most for your services are usually the ones who are paying the most attention, the ones who are the most diligent with following through, the ones who are often getting the best results. So these 4 realizations are actually what shaped that mindset shift. They're exactly what contributed to me moving from the side of the spectrum where I absolutely despised, hated, and was disgusted by sales, all the way over to this side where I not only look forward to them, kind of might love them, but also welcome them and pursue them. I sincerely hope that just me sharing these realizations with you has at least sparked some curiosity, has made you kind of consider similar circumstances in your own life that you've gone through or are going through that might very well be shaping a potential shift in your own mindset when it comes to the perception of sales and selling in general. Consider for a moment how the scarcity mindset and how the negative perception you may have of sales and selling in combination with each other is actually holding you back. Because I can almost guarantee that it is. If you found this video to be useful, informative in any way whatsoever, please take the time to follow or subscribe depending on what social media platform you're seeing this on. And as per usual, as is the case with every video, I'd just like to make it clear that if you have any specific questions that you might like me to cover, whether it's related to my own trading in general, business, sales, money, lifestyle, make sure to reach out. Drop a direct message, leave a comment, let me know what you'd like to see covered, and if I'm able to cover it, you can bet